Oh my God, you guys can actually see me. Sorry, I wasn't even ready. My bad. I still need to do the intro because this feels weird. Hold on. I gotta do it. Hey guys, welcome to SheKnowsArsenal again. You guys can follow me on Twitter at @JustKnowsTweets and at SheKnowsArsenal. Welcome to another episode. We're going to be going over Arsenal's tragic draw to West Ham United. We're going to get into it. Sorry about the intro earlier. It was like, I don't know, I didn't put my thingy on, it doesn't really matter, but I didn't put it on loop. So you guys were just watching me just like do nothing for a couple seconds there. Good thing I didn't say something that I didn't really mean, right? And then I was excited to show you guys that, like, if you guys can tell, I have on my glasses, but that ring light is not like in the thing because I don't have a ring light anymore. It's like a nice, pretty light. And I was happy to like show you guys off of the back of a win. But man, today has been very painful. The last 2 weeks have been painful. And, yesterday I did the stream, talking about Manchester City and people kept talking about the Manchester City game. And I was like, well, if we don't beat West Ham, it doesn't matter. And we weren't able to beat West Ham. And so from my perspective, Arsenal are dropping needless points from winning positions, and they need to look at themselves because it's all in their hands. It was all in their hands. And Anfield is a little bit different because we know when that place gets heated up, it could get very difficult for the cooks in the kitchen, right? But this was the same thing. It was the exact same thing, only West Ham had less quality, but they were still able to do the exact same thing to us. Just a week later, we were 2-0 up, playing beautiful football, completely dominating the game. Then 10 minutes before the half ends, we start doing silly stuff. We start smiling and smirking, being arrogant, doing flicks and tricks in the middle of the pitch. Thomas Partey, shocking game, little flick, trying to flick the ball over Declan Rice. He chests it down. Thomas Partey doesn't play to the whistle, has a fucking hand up. Declan Rice puts it in for Paqueta, and Gabriel panics. Penalty, they put it away. And from 2-1, we didn't seem to have the ability to regain composure. From that moment, West Ham had 9 shots. From the moment that they scored that first goal, 9 shots. That is more than we've given up like all season in a first half. And so it's tragic. The mentality, like our mentality goes in the dumpster when we're up 2-3 goals and we just go, you know what, we're too good, we're too this. And, at the Emirates, I think it's different because, you go down a goal, you get one right back, they're intimidated by the crowd, everybody's singing North London Forever, but away from home, you cannot be that arrogant. You really cannot. And I saw Holding smirking. I saw Xhaka smirking. The flicks were just nauseating. And the lack of professionalism from Arsenal from the moment we scored that second goal, for me, was something that I haven't seen. I mean, I saw it against Liverpool, but, you kind of give them a pass because Liverpool are a decent side and it's hard to go to Anfield. But damn, that was bad. And obviously the toxicity level has risen so high in this fan base. And I understand it because I think a lot of us felt like we could win the league and we were in a very decent position. But, Arsenal are going to learn the hard way. Either they're going to have to beat Manchester City at the Etihad, or they're just going to have to, hold, that L of not winning the league when we were in a decent position. And I think a lot of players have to look at themselves today because there was some really low performances today from players that have to step up during the run-in. And we're seeing people kind of go into their shell a little bit, start to, go away from, the limelight, go away from having to step up. And, also Arteta has to look at himself because he has to lead us in the right way. And I think some of his substitutions in the last 2 games have shown that experience where you kind of expect it to be there, but he needs to learn quicker. And so, yeah, it's a very disappointing day for Arsenal Football Club. It's a day to forget, you know, you have those 4 points in the bag and you're sitting pretty going into the game at the Etihad, but we pretty much handed it to Manchester City. And I don't blame anybody for thinking it's over, to be honest. So yeah, but I don't know what else to say, but it's disappointing. And what I will say is that I'm not saying that the entire season was horrendous and this is it, because I know some people will jump way off the cliff and say the players are crap and all that kind of stuff. I am criticizing this game and the performances of this game, but don't get it twisted. Like, this team has performed well this season, and that's the only reason why we felt like we could win the title. But in a title race against Manchester City, the margins are so fine, and you really can't be doing what they did against West Ham today, So they'll learn the hard way, So yeah. Mark says Newcastle just lost 3-0 to Villa. We can still win at St. James Park. Anything from the Etihad, and we will win the league. This really does remind me of the run in last season, where we're in good form, and then we hit some hiccups, and then maybe we'll beat Southampton, and then whatever happens at the Etihad will either buoy us or I think destroy us, and then I don't know. I think throwing away needless points, like we did against Brighton and Southampton last season, throwing away those points were really, for me, more of the knife and the nail in the coffin than going to Spurs and dropping the 3 points there. You know what I mean? And it just feels like, we're getting to the run in. And I know people don't want to say this, but I do think the pressure is getting to them. You see a very experienced player in Thomas Partey doing what he did today, bukayo Saka missing a penalty. For me, those are symptoms of the run in. It's getting too hot, and it's difficult when you're up against a team like Manchester City, but it's just the reality. This feels so similar to last season, albeit we're in a much better position. We know we're qualifying for Champions League, but we have to take our medicine today. It's the mentality is just kind of like in the gutter right now. This is the first game this season where I saw the players not play to the final whistle. I thought there were the only way I can describe it is unprofessional. Even against Liverpool, they were still defending as a team and they were still trying to attack. They completely shut down after the second goal that we got. And then once West Ham scored their goal, it was like we didn't even look like scoring. Then we get a lifeline with the penalty. And then from that moment when he misses it, it's just all West Ham and no Arsenal. They played the best football that they've played all season against us in the second half. And we didn't look like scoring. We just didn't. And if they don't believe we can win it, the fans definitely are not going to think it. So, they really need to look at themselves in the mirror. This is on them. It's on them, period. Make sure you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel, and all that good and wonderful stuff. If you're here for the first time, make sure you guys subscribe, get in the chat, and let me know what you guys are thinking off of the back of that 2-2 draw. Yeah, let's get into it. Holly A says, Jess, as a Liverpool fan, this is spooky now for Arsenal City, loving this stuff. They are probably going to win the league, from here. I don't know how else to feel or say it, I think, of course, we still have a chance, but if the mentality is what it was in the second half, how am I supposed to sit there and say, yeah, we'll go to the Etihad and get anything? We are much better than every single team in this league, barring Manchester City. They're the only team that I don't like, that we really, really struggle against, I think. But today we made West Ham look like West Ham of last season. Heads are gone, heads are down, and so yeah, Manchester City are going to be looking at this because they have the mentality and the experience, and we're showing that lack of experience. And it doesn't mean that Arsenal won't gain it, but it's definitely something that I think, we've seen 2 seasons running. it's like it's just something with Arsenal teams sometimes where I just feel like we don't have the right mentality at the right time. And it's something that I don't want to be a part of the Arteta era. I think the Arteta era cannot start off with the feeling that this group of players are bottlers. And I think maybe some players need to be brought in that can handle these high pressure moments. I think we have lived long enough with a team full of a lot of inexperienced players. If you think this season is difficult, next season is going to be much more difficult because we're going to be expected to go for the title again. We're going to be expected to perform in Champions League and fight on all four fronts. And this is exactly why I feel like we're going to have to look at this team and say who can hack it and who can't. We need midfielders. We need a new center back. We need another fullback. We need more things because it's not going to cut it. We need it, Boy says, we are still winning the league now. The lads know they have to win at City, and so we shall. Glad you have some positivity. I'm not, I don't know. Abalaka says, this is just the start of an Arteta era. Even this season, we can do it. I believe we can do it next season or the following season. It is the beginning of the Arteta era for sure. I think the thing is that I don't want the Arteta era to start to bleed into the other eras and people say like, oh, they're just bottlers. Like you have to stop it at some point. And so this season, if we bottle the league, it's going to be, they bottled top 4, they bottled the league, they did this. We need to bring in players that are going to keep that from happening. And they're just some players that I feel like really when the pressure is on, they're not stepping up the way that they should. But of course, like Arsenal started off really well and we were playing typical Arsenal football. But I have to be honest with you guys, when I woke up this morning, I didn't feel great. The Zinchenko news didn't make me feel happy at all because even though people were calling for Tierney, I hope they can see from today that, like he's a good player, but he doesn't really fit the system that great, And so I felt like Thomas Partey had to have a really good game because you didn't have Saliba to help build. You didn't have Zinchenko to help build. So all the pressure was going to be on him. And I thought he did really well from the beginning. But then at the 30th minute, I just don't know what he was thinking. I really, really don't. And Thomas Partey for me is a very good player. But, as a 30-year-old experienced player, I feel like his lack of availability during the run-in and then the beginning of this run-in, the type of performance that we're seeing, I'm not liking it. And, the quote from Mikel Arteta after saying like, people are doing tricks and flicks and it didn't look good. It doesn't look good for Thomas Partey, to be honest, but, I don't even know. Like, I don't even know what to say. Like, I'm lost for words from I can't believe that happened. Like, I can't believe that he did that. And then I saw a lot of Arsenal fans saying it was a handball, after he flicked the ball up and that's why he stopped. But you're supposed to play to the whistle. You're supposed to play to the whistle. And he had his hand up, which I was just like, come on, are you asleep? And then Gabriel dives in and we give up the penalty and they slot it away. And from that moment, we were shit from that moment on. And it's like they never recovered. It's like Arsenal a team scores against them and then they just lose all sense of self. They can't gain that control again. And I think that that's a mentality thing and a lack of experience thing. If we get 3 or 0 up at the Emirates, we're pretty much fine. But away from home, you have to keep the clean sheet. You got to get the 3rd goal. You got to be secure. And we just weren't that. We just weren't that at all. And so, yeah, we have to look at some of these things because I don't even think because like Mark is saying, drop Partey and play Jorginho versus Southampton. The funny thing about that is people were saying after the Anfield that Zinchenko needed to be dropped for Tierney and nothing good happened off of the back of Tierney playing today, except for we got to see Tierney play and it was a nice moment. But no, we should not be dropping Thomas Partey to play Jorginho versus Southampton. Partey needs to pull his fucking pants up and play like an experienced player that's going to get us like all this time. We've been dying for Thomas Partey to be fit during the run-in. I need you to play like Thomas Partey during the run-in. So Thomas Partey needs to be better. Jorginho's not going to do anything for us. He gave us a little bit of control and passed it sideways and backwards. But what did he really do? Thomas Partey needs to be better. I would not drop Thomas Partey against for Southampton, because first of all, Southampton can run. The last thing I want to see is a Xhaka, Jorginho midfield, you know? So I get it. But no, this is exactly what people did. Oh, we should have done this instead of it's too hindsight for me. Jorginho against West Ham? No thanks. Nikuli says, what are you saying? Thomas Partey was awful throughout. He couldn't even keep the ball in. He was awful. He really, really was. And then him like kind of rubbing his head and, looking like distraught was just like making me even more furious, because I'm like, so can you not gain control of yourself after making a mistake? Ash says Partey dropped a disaster class. I'm not here for substitution talk. The first team today stunk and let it slip. I'm not sure that every single time somebody has a bad game, the thing is whoever's on the bench is, I think Arsene said it best, is like whenever a player is playing poorly, the player on the bench all of a sudden seems world class. Like, no, like last couple of times that Jorginho has played, he's been nonsense as well. Ismaiah says Granit needs rest. Granit's just not, he's not the type of player that's going to get you over the line. He's a good player, but he's not the type of player that's going to take the game by the scruff of its neck. And I think that's what we're really missing in this team, is not the fact that we don't have good players. We have great players that play good football. They're better than 99% of, the league. But the mentality, we need a couple of different players in there that know how to take the game by the scruff of the neck. They know how to control a match, that don't, after one mistake, they're not holding their head and doing this. Like, you need better players sometimes, mentality wise. And I think Granit in the last two games has been okay, but has not been able to push us forward, or grab the game, and midfield is one of the positions where you need players to be able to grab the game, and in the second half, I felt like our midfield was just getting handled. West Ham do not have a fantastic midfield, but Declan Rice was handling us in that second half. And actually from the 30th minute mark in this first half all the way through the 90th minute, he was grabbing his team and grabbing them by the scruff of the neck and pushing them over the line. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, it's one of those where it's like mentality needs, we need more mentality monsters in this team for sure. Because it's not just about what you do to get up to the run in, it's what you do in the run in. Saksham says, we don't deserve to win the EPL. We have been lucky to be top two, with fact that other teams like LFC and Chelsea. So let's think about this for a second, because if that were the case and they were better, then you can't take away our points, even if they were better, right? Unless, let's say we drew to Chelsea, away from home when we played them, and let's say we lost to Liverpool, we'd still be top of the league. That would be 2 points less than what we have now. So how does Liverpool and Chelsea being better, stop us from winning our games? It just doesn't, so I get that to an aspect, but what we've been able to do is, I don't think Chelsea and Liverpool being better means that we don't beat most teams in this league home and away, and even if head to head, let's say we didn't get a point from Anfield, we drew to them at home, and so what is that, 1-2 points, and then we drew to Chelsea, or we still would be top of the league. So we're not lucky. The whole idea that if other teams were better, we would be losing or we would not be at top does not account for everything we did despite them being involved or not. So no, I don't agree. Leonard says next season, City, Chelsea, Liverpool, United, my prediction. That can be your prediction, but that was the prediction at the beginning of the season, and look where we are. So yeah. Darren says Saka hiding in the past 2 games, world-class player. You said he's had a world-class season in my opinion, and having a couple of bad games doesn't mean he's not. So yeah, I mean, you can say that, but he's been playing out of his skin this entire season. He's most likely just maybe going through a bad patch of form. But I feel like until the end of the season, I would hold back on some of these, like, oh, Saka's shit and Saka's this and Saka's that, as we know he's not. The best players have missed penalties, so I'm not going to take back what I said at all. Best in the world says, well said, Jess. I mean, people don't do simple math, even if Chelsea and Liverpool were better, they don't play the games that we play against the Southamptons of these teams or blah, blah, blah. So if we still won those games, but we just drop points against them, we'd still be top of the league. Doesn't make sense. But I mean, some of these are like even rival. It's not even just rival fans. It's like Arsenal fans. Like, this game can be criticized, of course, but Arsenal are still on track to almost 90 points. It's unheard of, I don't know. Let's see. Goon Squad says, well, CFC, if you think I'm a brain dead Yankee Doodle, first of all, I'll take your view because that helps my channel grow, but I'll also block you and you can go find something else to do today. How about that? Bye. See ya. All right, so Gunners for Life says Saka is affected by the absence of Saliba. White is more defensive, and this is affecting the attack on the right. I mean, that's a simple explanation for it, I think. I don't think Saka is the type of player that just, I feel like everybody needs a player to really go in on every single time we lose a game, or draw a game. It's like we have to have a player, boom, like this is the one, we're going to beat them down. Do you know what I mean? And I'm not sure that I'm prepared to do that to bukayo Saka. He missed the penalty. That's awful. He should be making those, whatever. But, he's been having a fantastic season. And so I'm having a hard time, connecting with, oh my God, Saka's not as good as I thought he was and this and that, especially because the season hasn't ended. And if he plays well against Southampton, turns up against City and plays well for the rest of the season, people will be like, oh my gosh, he's great again. So it's weird for me. Sakshem says, what does Odegaard do? He's missing for almost every tough away game. He scored a goal today. That agenda is not going to run today. He did his job. I think the player that you need to be looking at is Thomas Partey because he started that shit. Holding, being, heralded as this fine player is also needs to be looked at. Tierney didn't help himself. Both of the goals came off of his side, so I don't know what Odegaard has to do with this, but he scored his goal, and 2 goals against West Ham should have been enough to seal a victory. 2 goals against Liverpool should have been enough as well. So I'm not hearing this Odegaard was the one for today. That agenda is not going to run today. Get to look at some other players other than that. Let's see. Hero said, didn't Odegaard score? But people, this like, okay, this is my agenda, so I'm going to run it today. Doesn't help. So yeah, best in the world 13 says he literally scored. Odegaard wasn't the problem. And the thing about saying like, well, he scored, but that doesn't mean that he played well, is that even when Odegaard plays well and doesn't score, people decide that he was anonymous because he didn't have goals and assists. He has 11 goals this season, and he did his job today, and he wasn't terrible today. Honestly, xhaka was anonymous. Thomas Partey was terrible. Holding was a problem. Gabriel was on an island by himself. Tierney didn't help. Ben White was stuck next to Holding. Saka wasn't great. And Martinelli and Jesus for me did their job as well. So, take that as you will. But yeah, Lucas says you don't give momentum away. Why are we not professional? Why are not professional away team anymore? Because the pressure is getting to them, I think. I think the pressure is getting to them. They gotta, it's weird because to be so arrogant, like I feel like it's even harsh. How do I say it? You're up 2-0, so clearly you didn't feel pressure going to West Ham and getting the points. But then you got arrogant, and then that arrogance was tested, and then you kind of deflated. So I think we were just unprofessional, And then once we gave up the goal, we didn't feel confident that we could come back. I've never seen Arsenal do this, like bottle 2-goal leads twice. Like that is special stuff from a team, Goon Squad says we don't have the mental toughness needed. We don't put the foot on the throat and put teams away. If we are the champs of the league, we cannot drop points, especially if leading teams by multiple goals. Yeah, this is true. The one thing I'll say about, some of this stuff too is like we don't have the mental toughness needed now, but nobody really expected us to be in this position. So, of course, it's going to be disappointing if we don't win the league, and especially from such a good position. But we will have qualified for Champions League, which is exactly what we needed to do this season. But maybe winning the title was just a step too far. And I still think we're missing some key players, not even just from a playing standpoint, but from a mentality standpoint in order to get there. Our players need to learn how to be more clutch. They need to learn how to, be more ruthless. And this season they have improved that so much so that we're in a title race, but maybe not enough to win the league. And so again, criticizing them in the moment does not mean that I don't think that these players are good enough and can improve. But I feel like we're going to get the same thing that we had last season where people really turn on the players if we don't win the title. But I would say after what happened, off of the back of last season, don't come back. Don't come back. If this season after, the final whistle blows and if we're second and we don't win the title and you totally cook our players and say that they're bottle jobs and they're shit and, Arteta needs to go and, blah, 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 don't come back next season. Because last season you guys did that. And then look where we are now. Then you guys come back and you're excited about it. And then when we don't do it, then you guys kill the players again. The merry-go-round is so boring. Criticize the game, but always keep perspective because it's just, a lot of us didn't even have Arsenal in the top 4. It's weird. Mark says Xhaka and Holding are not good enough. Xhaka has been okay this season, but he's in a much better team. It's a lot easier to perform in a better team. Have to get Rice in the summer. Do not fail me, Edu. I think Declan Rice definitely showed our midfield levels today. He's in a really terrible West Ham team, and he was able to claw, them back into the game. And so I do think that we need to look maybe beyond Xhaka for sure and look at Thomas Partey as well, because he's somebody that can perform every 4 days. And that's what the requirement is. And if you're either unavailable for the run-in or you drop performances like this in the run-in, I also think that maybe that's a position that you can improve upon. Not saying that these players can't exist within the squad, but, there are levels that we need to go up. And, I expect more from those players because they're older. You know what I mean? But Xhaka, he went missing today. And that's what happens is like if Thomas Partey or Odegaard doesn't have a good game, Xhaka doesn't have the ability to do anything, really. And it's a shame. Let's see. Gunnar Vittel says, not going to lie, if Saliba comes back, I get all my faith back. The whole team was really bad today, but I think Holding ruins our build-up. I'm just glad the Holding is good enough kind of thing. The gimmick is up now. I get that like Holding is a good guy, but ultimately when you have players in your team that when the starter is out, you can't even play anywhere near the same as the way that you play with the starter. It's just no for me. And the thing is like West Ham were pretty much dead and buried. Their fans were booing them. And they were kicking the ball into the channels, and Antonio was getting some joy against Holding, and that's what gave them the spark to continue. And he gives teams hope, where Saliba and Gabriel completely shut out the light. Holding gives you hope. And I think Xhaka gives you hope sometimes as well. And when Thomas Partey is even like 5% off of his game, gives you hope. It's varying degrees, but Holding is the type of player that if I saw him as an opposition player, I would say we have a chance. And so those players can't be in your team. So it's no offense to Holding. I do think that he's kind of like an very average footballer, at best. And he's trying really hard, but I think Arsenal, we need to move on from him at some, very soon. But yeah, he gave them so much hope today, So yeah. Let's see. Flava Max TV says we disrespected the game of football today. I agree. Let's see. Sakjum says attitude of players is not good enough. They think they're Bar said 2009. I mean, they really need to look at themselves in the mirror, because some of the stuff I saw today was like, come on now. Prepa Med says even at 2 goals, I felt like we were cagey. We don't create nearly as much chances as before, just sterile possession. The funny thing about I didn't feel confident either. And I think that it's because we went up too early. Just like in the Liverpool game, we were up 2-0 by like the ninth minute or something like that. And then our whole thing just like dropped and we got stupid and silly. And so that's a game state that I'm not sure where at the beginning of the season, we were doing that a lot. We were fast start, and then the game was pretty much over. Lately, we've been not scoring as early. Now we're scoring early again, and we can't figure out how to manage the game. And so they just need to look at themselves. And I hope some of them, think I really want to change things for the next game and not just have a pity party, because they don't deserve to have a pity party. Nobody did anything to you. You're not, you're being paid very well on a team that's top of the league. You have no reason to pity yourself. Suck it up and start again against Southampton and realize that you put yourself in a shitty position, but it's your job to get us out, because they shouldn't feel sorry for themselves. They really, really shouldn't. So yeah, Ayanle says Arteta was the real culprit today. The subs, best player on the bench and helps with control in Jesus. I'm not sure if they're just managing his minutes, but sometimes you do have to go against the plan. And I think you could have brought in Trossard and, took Saka off, because sometimes you have to save players from themselves. And I don't think Saka was coming back from that penalty miss. But I also just feel like even the substitutions didn't make that much of a difference. I know people are saying, well, Jorginho gave us more control, but West Ham actually sat off. After they got that second goal, they sat off. So we naturally would have always gotten more control of the game. So none of the substitutions made a difference. And, that's when you're in the pits, when even the people coming off the bench don't make any sort of dent or difference in the game. So I think this Jorginho, giving us control is a little bit of a farce. Everybody was poor, from the players that started to the players that came on, and Arteta's subs were not great, but I expect players to do the job on the pitch as well. So yeah. Daniel says that's the pressure. John says the problem is the defense. I agree. I think the problem is defensively. People are saying, well, scoring and blah. We scored 2 goals. Like, the defense was awful. In terms of, I think again into the channels. The only time that Antonio didn't get any joy was when Gabriel had to come over and help holding. And from the beginning, we've been able to kind of just do one player, putting out fires, one sweeping, one in front. And we're not able to do that with holding because they were just playing into the channel. And so the defending wasn't great. But again, when you have 2 of your best on the ball players out at the same time, you have to expect that there's going to be a little bit of a drop off. You know what I mean? And so that drop off was definitely there. And then when we got to the point where we were panicking, I noticed that Holding and Tierney were whacking it up the pitch every time that they got. And that's the problem that you have, is you need to have players that are calm on the ball and are not afraid to receive it under pressure, because, otherwise you can't do anything. And so, yeah, I think you can't lose 2 of your best ball playing defenders in the run-in. And that's what we have. So yeah, I think it's a lot of mental toughness. You can say mental toughness, you can say mentality, you can say pressure, you can say all those things, which, is testing Arsenal's title chances, and whether or not Arsenal are actual, Premier League champions. Right now we are failing. And so it's not looking good, but at the same time, like, you learn to go again as well. And people, again, if you're going to just from here on out, just slate the players every week, week in and week out, just go, because this is still a team that is getting their feet underneath them in terms of being title challengers. And like, I just get tired of the merry-go-round every season. I really do. I am having a hard time with this name. Methuselah. Oh my gosh, I don't want to kill it. Methuselah. Thank you so much for your super chat. I'm sorry I can't pronounce your name, but I'm sorry. I really am. But thank you so much for your super chat. I really appreciate it. Let's see. Dial Square says of Arteta's choice to keep holding and buy defenders that are not ready. I mean, fair enough. I mean, if you feel like, that's the case. Yeah. If you guys can name me players that were available that we could have gotten, that would have been okay with sitting on our bench, behind Saliba and, Gabriel with Europa, let me know. I think that's the next step of this team is moving on from holding. Kivior will come into his own. And with Champions League, you're able to convince players that are good enough and are high quality to fight for for playing time. I do think that we have this weird perception that we'll have 3 or 4 world-class center backs, in our team with no Champions League, so yeah. Errol says Saka taking penalties is over. I don't think so. He's missed one for Arsenal and he's made 5 this season or something like that. So I don't think a player missing a penalty, is a reason to, take him off of penalties. And you let me know who you trust, who's not Saka, because I don't trust Odegaard. I think maybe Jesus probably should have taken it, but I don't know if that's a reason why. I'm really, let's not go too far, it's 1 minute Saka is our star boy and the next minute it's he's overrated and he needs to be off penalties and he should be dropped and all this kind of stuff. Like, be for real. Ivy says slating the players is not the best. However, I think it's in City's hands. I do as well. I agree exactly with that. They bottled it today, Lionide says priority 1, get Saliba ready for the City game. Let's see. Richo says Arsenal bottle jobs. Yeah, we bottled it today. Tamim says, hello, Jess. Cronky hater speaking, but always support our coaches and players winning the league or not. What do you expect from the owner mentality ambition in the summer transfer window? 2 midfielders, of a very high quality. So we can look beyond Thomas Partey and Granit Xhaka. An attacker with Champions League experience and another fullback. That's what I kind of expect from the Cronkies. I think if we attack midfield properly in the summer, we will be unstoppable. I really do. So yeah, Saksham says only Jesus and Martinelli are fighters. Our whole mid and attack hides at different times. I won't say that. I don't believe that Saka is not a fighter. I think he has had an off game, in terms of midfield. I just feel like they're really good when, on 99% of the time, but on the off 1%, they just can't get going. And we see those same things that we kind of always talk about, like not being able to control the game, not winning your duels, not being able to find each other, things like that. And so there is a limit and a ceiling to this midfield. This midfield is good enough to challenge for a title, but it's probably it may not be good enough to win one. And so removing one of those players in xhaka and maybe bringing in an understudy or somebody that can compete with Thomas Partey, I think is definitely the number one thing that we need for this season or next season. Let's see. Brandon says Bowley has ambition 11th. The funny thing is, like, people say before the season even ends that, of course, like, that means that this is Arsenal's last chance at winning a title. But before you even see the transfer windows, where everybody ends up, and also knowing that people said we wouldn't get a chance at top 4 again, and the very next season we had a chance, I would be more concerned about Chelsea fans, Liverpool fans trying to figure out how to keep up with us than how we're going to keep up with people that are 20 points behind us. We don't need to worry about that. They need to be worried about how to catch up to us, not how we're going to catch up with people that are behind us. We don't need to be worried about them. They need to be worried how to come up to us. Again, Arsenal on 90-point pace, in a title race is not a fluke. And if you look at the last 2 seasons, in terms of who's been able to accrue the most points off of the last 2 seasons, it's Man City and Arsenal, top 2. So not just last season, but this season, we've been the best 2 teams the last 2 seasons running. So it's not about us trying to figure out how to catch up with people behind us. Blaze says, I hope some Arsenal would appreciate more Saliba and Zinchenko today because they are still important for us. Some last days I've heard so much disrespect to Saliba and Zinchenko from the fans. I haven't seen any Saliba stuff, but the Zinchenko stuff, everybody that was Tierney, and I love Tierney, but everybody that was saying Zinchenko, he's not a good left back, should be Tierney, he's much better. I know you're real quiet today. I know you are. And you should be. Let's see. Legitimate says, Jess, I keep hearing that City will drop points, but I doubt it now. 2 games before this, yes, but now no. By winning, we were putting pressure on them. Drawing games only encourage them to win. I agree. I don't really see, Man City dropping any points unless we miraculously take it off of them, or maybe Brighton. But I can see them winning every game from here on out. They're strong enough to do it, and they have the mentality, and we're just, kind of cracking a little bit, and you can't go to the Etihad with holding. I just feel, that's injury to Saliba. I felt like it wouldn't be something that would keep us from being able to, beat the smaller teams. Like, he was fine against Crystal Palace and Leeds at home. But once you go away from home and, you got Gabriel back there fighting for his life, it's just too difficult. Saksham says, Man U had better season than us. Only football gods can make us win at the Etihad. I don't know if they had a better season than us. I mean, if that's what you think, then that's what you think. But I don't know if I'd rather be in their position than ours. I think a lot of people would rather be in their position because they don't have any pressure on them, really. They'll probably get top 4, finish comfortable in 3rd. They won the Carabao Cup. And of course, trophies is everything. But the funny thing is that, people are saying that this is our last ever chance of ever being able to fight for the Premier League title. This is it. It'll be another 10 years, 15 years before we even get a look in again. And if that's the case, then you can't really blame Arsenal for going full pelt for the title and maybe not putting as much emphasis on the smaller trophies, because we'll have a chance to fight for, a Carabao Cup and an FA Cup in the near future, but the Premier League, we won't see it again, right? So you can't talk out of both sides of your mouth where it's like, oh my gosh, we shouldn't have, went out of the cup so easy. We shouldn't have thrown them and only focused on the Premier League because it would have been easier to get a trophy somewhere else, when you guys are saying that this is our last chance of getting the Premier League anyway. So I think Arsenal will have done the right thing to fight for the title, since it's our last ever chance of ever getting to see it, right? But I think Man United, from a sporting perspective, I do think they, if you have a trophy, then you can consider it a better season, especially if they do finish in the top 4. But, being in a title race and not winning it, I don't think is the worst thing in the world when you think about where Arsenal have been. Nick says, Jess, Arteta had KT inverting. That's not his game, but that's how we play. KT, bombing up and crossing the ball into a non-existent tall striker doesn't help us. So he has to play inverted. That's the way that we play. That's why Tomiyasu was playing in front of him, and is exactly the reason why I think he won't be here next season. Hector Smith says, new season is a gamble for every team, especially Arsenal. I don't know what that means. Brandon says, if United finish top 4 in Carabao, yes, it's better season. Yeah, from a sporting perspective, it is a better season. But, I don't know if I'd want to be in a top 4 dogfight right now. I don't know if I'd want to be that instead of in a title race. Of course, I wish we would have won some silverware, but, I don't know. I feel like even if we were down there and we were fighting for top 4 and we were in all the other competitions and we won a Carabao Cup, people would be complaining that we didn't try to go harder for the title because City would have been walking away with it. So I think it's just we say the opposite because we're upset, you know? Everybody was excited to be in a title race until it looked like we weren't going to win it. Glenn says City winning every single of their last 10 games is a myth. They haven't done that since 2018. Last season, they drew 3 from the last 10. Previous season, they lost 3 from the last 10. Hopefully that helps again. That helps, but, you know, or that happens again. But I think they'll probably win every single one of their last games, to be fair. Wake up. Pep clearly said players will be sharp and fit if they play once in 3 days. It keeps them hungry and sharp in his press conference. Fair enough. The McChronicle says, just as far as United having a better season, you hear Lee Gunner ask Terry this every time, what is the aim of elite sport? I hear that. I hear that it's all about trophies, you know, 100%. But again, I think Arsenal fans, if they were in a top 4 dogfight and it wasn't guaranteed that they would make top 4, but they had won a Carabao Cup, and there's no guarantee that they're going to win the FA Cup or the Europa League. If, let's say, they potentially go out of both of those competitions and don't finish in the top 4, let's just say that that happens, then would you be happy with just the Carabao Cup? I don't know, you know, so I don't know what else to tell you guys. Of course, like, if it finishes the way that it does now, they've had a better season in terms of a sporting perspective, but am I going to be sitting there twerking for Man United? No. So yeah. Leonard says, if you guys challenge us next season, wouldn't mind it, but we need the 3-peat to shut Rags. Sorry, but yeah. Okay, you know. Okay. Errol says, Jess, would you start our new center back against Southampton instead of Holding? I would love to do something new, but I feel like hopefully Zinchenko is back and we can just at least go back to getting some control with Zinchenko. But we're in a really bad position here. The Tomiyasu and Saliba injuries coming off of the back of that Europa League game has really screwed up our season. I mean, this is the second season in a row that we've had an injury crisis in our back line, you know, and we're seeing Holding playing in the run-in. And so, you know, playing Kivior, you know, playing 2 left-footed center backs that have never played with each other at the Etihad just kind of smells a little bit like grasping for straws at this point. But what I would like to try is, if Zinchenko is not 100% fit, maybe try Kivior at left back, because we need to be defensively solid and everybody needs to collapse on top of Holding to make sure that he doesn't make any mistakes. And so I would prefer to have a more defensive back line. And I don't think a more defensive back line necessarily includes Kieran Tierney, but maybe, you know, another center back playing kind of like Ben White would help. But that Etihad trip is going to be horrible. It really is. It's going to be very difficult to win. Very difficult. We'd have to be perfect. We don't usually score at the Etihad either. So, you know, and they're just really good, you know, so they're the best team in Europe, in my opinion. Like, and I don't think it's difficult to say that they're the best team, you know, so it's gonna be hard, especially not without Saliba. Ivy says, it's going to be hard next season to be in this position. We will have Champions League and play some tough teams. Yeah, exactly. It'll be tougher. Like, it'll be tougher in terms of what we have to deal with. I do kind of push back on this idea that naturally all the other teams will be so much better. So that's why it's going to be difficult. Us managing 2 different competitions or 3 different competitions, being expected to do well in those. And that's why the summer window is so important, because we need to bring in like 3 players, at least 2 midfielders, to really sturdy up this side. Phil says, you just ain't got the experience to get it over the line. You was never winning the league, in my opinion. Well, even if we don't win the league, at least I'm not a Spurs fan. I mean, I know that that's all you guys have to live for, but I'd rather be in a title race and lose it than be a Spurs fan fighting for top 4. I really would. So, yeah. And you guys will probably never win the league, I'm pretty sure. Saksham says, Saka tried tired narrative is BS. He's literally playing 1 game a week. I'd like to put you in Saka's position and see if you'd be tired by now. Bengal says, it's an absolute disgrace today. We lost the league. Anyone who tells me this season has been a success will get a glass bottle smashed around their head, just like Arsenal bottle today. Pathetic. Well, I'm glad I don't live in your home. because that's assault, and I would definitely be saying that. And if you smash me over the head with a bottle, you're going to jail, my friend. So I would seek therapy, because this, in regards to a football game, it's 22 guys kicking a ball, on some grass into some nets. I would gain some perspective and maybe some therapy, because this is way, way, way over the top. But good luck with that. Carlton, thank you so much for becoming a member. I love that. Really appreciate it. So yeah, seek help. Dale says the primary goal of the league sport is winning the league. Arsenal have finished fourth, was finishing fourth and winning cups for years. How can that be better than making a huge step forward toward regular title contenders? If we had won a Carabao Cup, we're in a top four scrap, they would be upset that we didn't push for the league with this team. It's just vice versa right now. And I think if we had done kind of like what Ten Hag did, where we played strong lineups in every single competition, we probably would have gotten to a final, maybe won it, and would be in a top four dogfight. But Arsenal, I think, gambled on the league because, again, it's our last ever chance to ever win one, but it's a really good opportunity to try to win one. We found ourselves in an unprecedented scenario, and they also wanted to make sure that they secured top four, because I'm going to be honest with you guys. If Arsenal had done what Ten Hag did, and for some reason we didn't get top four, you guys would not be happy with that Carabao Cup. You guys would not be saying, well, it's better because we want to, we know that this season we need Champions League. So yeah, of course we want to be the type of team that can fight on all fronts, and it's about winning trophies. But I think a lot of people are lying. I really think people are lying for sure. MZ says, just like Liverpool, this is just a stepping stone. No, this is it. This is the last time we're ever going to play football ever again. If that's what everybody's saying. And Goni says, in the league with 20 teams, how can finishing second out of 20 be failure? Only one team will win the title. 99% of football teams don't win anything. What I'll say about this is that, next season, I want to be the type of team that can go further in the cup competitions. Next season, I want to win trophies. Next season, I still want to fight for the title and do well in the Champions League. But we will have failed to win the title, so the remit as of probably halfway through the season was to win the title. So we will have failed to do that if we don't win it. But is the season a complete write-off and a failure? No. But people don't really seem to have any sort of perspective because they get so lost in their feelings when we don't do well. And I get that we want Arsenal to be the best team in the world right now because we've been poor for so long, but it doesn't happen overnight. Hanif says, last year Spurs beat you to top four. Stop acting like you were winning leagues for years because you haven't. Doesn't matter. I mean, first of all, Spurs, Arsenal, I'd rather be a Spurs fan. I'd rather be an Arsenal fan than a Spurs fan. That's the truth. And we have won way more trophies than Spurs. They haven't won anything since 2008. And even in our worst ever period, we won trophies. So even if, we're not Man City, we're definitely not Spurs. We sit at a different table. So happy you're triggered, but there's no real comparison between Arsenal and Spurs. So yeah, I'd rather be an Arsenal fan than a Spurs fan. They beat us to top four. What did that do for them? They're probably going to finish in the Europa League spots if they're lucky this season. So I don't know. I think some people are trying too hard. If you're a Spurs fan and you think that we should feel like you, I don't feel like you because I've seen my team win a league. I don't feel like you. In your best ever period, we won things. I don't feel like you. We're not Spurs. Oil or Nothing says, is match sharpness more important than match fitness? I do think that having games midweek, does help you. I think last season, I do think we struggled from I think we've looked less sharp since we went out of the Europa League, if that makes sense. You have to have that little bit of, keeping yourself fit, sharp. And so this whole idea that if we're in one competition, that means that we're going to be so much better. I don't really believe in that. the more competitions you're in, the better. It could hurt you in terms of like, maybe you can't concentrate on all four as good as you possibly can, but like if we were still in the Europa League, do I necessarily feel like, we would be in such a worse position now than we are now? Like if we had had those two games against who would it have been? Juventus or something like that. I still think we would have had players that were sharper, players that were fighting for the positions, things like that, and that could have helped us. Whereas people felt like not having those games gave us like a whole week to prepare, and I don't necessarily feel like that helps us. I think our players need repetition rather than game and then a week, game and then a week, game and then a week. We were at our sharpest when we were playing in the Europa League. I hope that answers your question. I don't believe in, I'm glad that we're out of competition so that we can be fit. I don't believe in that. I think the sharpness is better, if that makes sense. Errol says Champions League football next. Guys, what have Spurs won? Haha, watch expressions. It's funny. Saksham says, I'm just tired of bottling games at the end of every season. I get what you're saying. How old are you, Saksham? Like, some people, so I think some people only really remember us like top four and never really being in a title race and just securing top four, winning the odd FA Cup. So depending on how old you are, this might be your first ever title race, and yeah, it sucks. One team wins, one team doesn't, and it definitely is fine margins. And we may be on the wrong side, but one day we won't. DJ N says players keep them sharp mentally and physically. Exactly. That's what I was trying to say. Like, I don't really believe in this idea that we, going out of the Europa League was like the best possible thing for us at this point. Because at least some of our players could have been sharper, because even like Jorginho, he's looked really rusty, and so how good is he if he is not up to full speed? So yeah, I get that aspect of things as well. Let's see. Errol says, remember Bournemouth, Spurs. Yeah, but I've heard over the last couple of weeks that Spurs fans are going to be so excited if we don't win the league because it'll make their season. And I would hate for my season to be only about, my rival not winning the league, but that's their life, So yeah, Tawanda says we are not winning the league. Lucas says last real title race was 2004, to be honest. So the whole generation don't remember. Yeah. If you've been around, that it's been a while since we've actually been in a title race. We've been in top four scraps, but this is the first time since like 2008 where we've been in a legitimate title race. So yeah. Aha says 2007, 2008 was the last real one, mate. Let's see. Leonard says Arsene Wenger brought beautiful football. Pep took it to another level. But Frederick says, by the way, how does it cost us for an average Arsenal game? Is it more than a City game? I don't know about ticket prices. Did anybody know? I don't know about the ticket prices. I always buy off of a third party, and they're always super expensive. So I wouldn't know anything about that, to be honest. Ivy says this gives me some Eduardo season vibe all over again. Yeah, you kind of know when it's coming apart at the seams a little bit. It feels like it, but we'll see. Let's see. Wake Up Mind says Pep invested $1 billion to take it to another level, to be honest. I don't want to be that person, but it wasn't too long ago where we were, talking about how Man City had maybe breached some things to get to where they are. And so it's not like we're really playing on the same playing field either. People are like, we need to have Laporte, Akanji, Ake, Diaz, and Stones, and we need to have that. Ain't nobody got that. Look at Real Madrid and look at what they got behind their starters, so we just need to be better at dealing with the injuries. We need to bring in some better players in midfield. We do need to improve, but if you think we're going to have 4 world-class center backs in our group, you got another thing coming. It's not going to happen. Pancake says exactly. Elton says 2016, last season. I don't even know if we really challenged in that one, to be fair. I think that's actually the season that Spurs actually bottled it, right? Because they were actually like there with Leicester, and then we were like bad, and then we started like winning a lot of games at the end. I would still say 2008 is like the last time. Pancake. The first 30 minutes, Arsenal were amazing. They got cocky. I think that's all I can really say about the game is that we got arrogant and we got bopped. Like that's really what it is. It's embarrassing. It does feel like the wheels are falling off a little bit. And it was the first time this season where I saw the boys and I thought that they weren't playing enough. Like they weren't actually trying. They were trying, but like not. They were just going through the motions. And they didn't believe. That's the first time that they looked like they didn't believe. And that's a shame because they look like they believed every single, game. But this did remind me of the Southampton, Brighton, that little run of games where, these are games that we should be winning, but we didn't win them. And here we are. Errol says, Jess, would we still get Declan Rice? I think so. Declan Rice was playing for his life. He definitely wanted to make a statement and hopefully we can get him. And quite frankly, if I had to choose between the two DMs, I would have chosen Declan Rice for today because at least he drug his team out of a 2-goal deficit. Thomas, he was so disappointing today. It really just, I can't get over it. It was really bad. It was really bad. Very bad. Let's see. Very bad. Wake Up says we need someone good or better than Partey and xhaka. I kind of agree with that. I think Partey is a quality player, and I think he's really, really good, but I think he lacks tempo control. Mentally, I think he can capitulate sometimes. And, if you think about at Spurs when he got injured and he just lost his whole brain, that felt like today, where he just kind of lost his whole brain. And you need calm, cool, collected in that position. And most of the time he's that, but at the highest level, those fine margins can really cost you. And so I think, especially because he can't play every 4 games, we need to start looking beyond him as well. Even if he's really good, but like best in the world 13 times says we can't rely on him. And that's kind of how I feel as well. Dale says Arsenal have 4 winning streaks of 4+. Man City only had 1. It's dropping points back-to-back games. It's killing us. I mean, it couldn't get any worse. I think it's because also like we started off so well. It's different when the other team scores and then you score and then they score and then you score. Then it's kind of like, but yeah. Elton says we would really need some serious competition for Saka next season and a world-class midfielder if we are serious about CL. That's what I'm saying. But I'm for attacking wise, I don't want any more kids. That's why I'm kind of like against, the Olise types because he, as good of a player as he is, he's never played in Champions League in his life, and I don't feel like if it was a Champions League quarterfinal with the ball dropped to him, I would be 100% sure that he would bury it in the back of the net. And so like Zinchenko and Gabriel Jesus has given us like that exponential growth in such a short time. I think bringing in 3 more players like that could really help us. So, even though Declan Rice hasn't really played Champions League, I think he's the exception because he's an exceptional player with the good mentality and will be more of like a leader out there in the midfield. But if we bring in another midfielder, they have to have been able to play at a top level. I think you bring in, a right winger, they need to have had Champions League experience. And a fullback, the fullback is a little bit different because they'd probably be playing behind Ben White the entire time, but that's what we need. That's what we need. Wake Up says, I'm still wondering why ESR wasn't even used this season. People are saying that we should be using him, 100%, but I just have this feeling that he's so far down the pecking order that I wouldn't be surprised if a good bid came in that he'd be gone. I'm not sure that I see where the playing time is coming for him. I don't see him breaking into the first team, and it's just really a shame. But when you're that low down on the pecking order, it's hard to get back up. Reece Nelson has taken his position, So yeah, Mashego says, Jess, what do you think of Ferran or Ansu from Barca for competition? I mean, Ansu Fati can't stay fit. I don't want another player to bring in, and then if Saka gets injured, then we have another player that's brittle. Ferran Torres, always liked him. Think that he's probably in the wrong situation with Barcelona, but at the same time, he didn't like being in England, so I'm not sure he'd like to come back. And is he necessarily the type of player that's going to take you to another level? I'm not sure. Is he a good filler? Yes. Frederick says, no more Arsenal games for Kim K. It's a curse. Oh my gosh. Ever since she came, it's been a little rough, huh? Bobby the Brave says, still want Caicedo, but Rice's quality today. Today highlighted why we need 2 midfielders and not 1. If Arsenal are serious, they'll go out there and get 2. They'll figure out a way to get rid of Jorginho and get 2. That's just what it is. If Arsenal are serious, they'll get 2. They'll sit Thomas Partey next season on the bench and also xhaka and move forward from there. As good as they are, I think there's a ceiling to that midfield. And you need to give Odegaard a better platform because obviously, I think you have to build that midfield around him because you need to figure out how you can make sure that he doesn't get, the game doesn't pass him by because he doesn't have the platform. I feel the same way about Fabio Vieira. You can't put him in a midfield where we don't have control. And so how do you gain control? You need to be able to win your duels, win your battles, keep the ball, control the tempo, and things like that. And I think if Thomas Partey is not having a good game, you can't trust xhaka either. So yeah, there's some demolition that needs to happen in midfield for sure. Aha says, just thoughts on Tierney. I think he was fine, but I don't think he was anywhere near as amazing as people were making it seem like he would have been in the absence of Zinchenko. I think he was just okay, but there was also some rustiness. So I'm not going to say it's just because he's not good enough or anything like that. Tierney's a great player, but he also hasn't played enough. Doy and Sola says, we don't have to win at City. A point is all that's needed. I think a point is looking hard to come by. Dave says, in terms of like playing against the best team in Europe, I mean, Dave Riley says, Arsenal need to win every game from now until the end of the season, not just the City game. It's going to be hard. Rep 187 says, Rice and McAllister would be nice. It would be nice. But, Arsenal, we'll see what they do in the summer. Excuse me. Wake Up says, Tierney has a habit of getting cold feet under pressure. I think the players that looked like they could, I think Martinelli is a big game player. I think Gabriel Jesus is a big game player. I think Gabriel, albeit he gave away the penalty, I put that squarely on Thomas Partey, in my opinion. I just think you make a mistake like that, and then Gabriel did the last-ditch tackle. Everybody's saying you didn't have to tackle him, but as a defender, you're not just going to let somebody go in on goal. Like, that doesn't make sense. Like, you usually will tackle, and he was a one mad defense back there because he was doing all this stuff because holding was just like lost, so I think we've learned that a couple of players are probably big game players, Gabriel, all the Brazilians, and I'm still waiting on some others to show up. I think some of our players have struggled under the bright lights, and so they either need to show that they can do it or we need to look beyond them, especially the older players that have been here, for a while. Rep 187 says Tierney just can't play the inverted role. Dave says, Jess, how would you feel if Arsenal muck this up? I mean, I've already kind of said it from the beginning, but, obviously, if we don't win the title, we will have failed in that regard because, the remit since about halfway through the season was to win the title. So it would be failure not to do it. But the season, is it like a write-off? Was it a terrible season? Absolutely not, because of where we know that we've come from and the, improvement that we've made. But I'd be very disappointed. I do feel like, I'd be in my bed for a couple of days, just kind of like licking my wounds because, there was a period of time where I really felt like we could do it. And these last couple of games have really made me feel like we really just F things up, So, but again, I'm not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater. We do it every season. We're, we lose a couple games, we don't get to where we want to be, and then all of a sudden we want all the players gone, we hate them all, they're all shit, and then as soon as they start playing again the next season, we act like we never said all that shit. So, we've improved, just maybe not enough to win the league. Lionide says Jesus was spotted on right back today. He's dropping deep occasionally. I think some people don't like when he drops deep, but I think sometimes it's needed, especially because xhaka was a non-entity in midfield today. And Jesus was dropping back to try to like gain space and try to get us, going and stuff like that. And again, Jesus did his job. He scored a goal. I thought he was good. Probably should have taken the penalty. Probably should have stayed on. So Jesus, I think, obviously he's still kind of getting going, but in the last 3 games, he's scored goals. So he's on form, and hopefully he can continue on until the rest of the day, or rest of the season. Tawanda says, Arsenal need quality, depth and quality. Holding isn't good enough. Tomiyasu is always injured. Tierney is also not good enough. It hurts saying that. It's a shame, but it feels like every season, we get these defensive injuries and that's it. We can score goals now, but now we can't defend, and it's really difficult. But next season, there should not be a scenario where Holding is playing in the run-in. So, whatever that means, if we're in a scenario next season where Holding could potentially be our starting center back in the run-in, we've made a grave mistake. We need to move on from him. Tomiyasu, give him one more season to see if he can maintain fitness. And then, I don't know what's going to go on with Tierney, but I wouldn't be surprised if he wasn't here. Bring in another right back and then go again. We have to go again. Let's see. Abdul says, Mikel Arteta can't keep relying on the same core players, needs to give others more playing time. Give Reece 10 minutes and Kivior at field, shaking my head. I think Arteta is going kind of back to type where it's like he doesn't trust the group. And so he's starting to get very like, okay, I'm going to keep on with the guys that I trust. But ever since we went out of the Europa League, there's just less chances to see the other guys. They're not really playing for anything. They don't feel, I don't even know if they feel invested. As a squad player at Arsenal, I would feel a little bit like, well, do I have a chance to start? Because even if I play well, I know I'm going to be on the bench if my name is not Saka, Martinelli, Jesus, Thomas, So, he doesn't really rotate, and he doesn't really use the gray areas of the squad as well as he probably can. But at the same time, like Reece Nelson is not a player that I would trust I wouldn't trust him that much anyway. I know he scored the goal against Bournemouth, but that's a once in a lifetime. Every other cameo that he's had pretty much since then has been okay. So I don't know if Arteta is just like waiting to have world-class depth everywhere to make those changes, but he needs to use these people a little bit more, I think, to give them confidence, because the fact that like the subs came on and nothing changed is worrying, because that's how it was last season. He makes these changes, nothing happens. That's weird. It's weird, right? Aha says Jess, he should have took Saka off today instead of Jesus. I think Arteta should have just accepted that Saka was having a mare and took him off for today's game, for the game's sake. I agree. Let's see. Lionide says Jesus 60% conversion rate on penalties, rather not have him there. Fair enough. Steven says we are in a race. We are 4 points ahead. Tierney is not up to our standard. Yeah, we're still in the race and we're 4 points ahead, but everybody just figures that this is it. And I feel like the game at the Etihad is going to be it. That's going to be it. And the thing is like, if Arsenal don't get their head out of their ass and perform, if like we could look back and maybe if Man City do drop points, we don't have the opportunity to take advantage of it because we're all in our feelings. So I think the team needs to just look at themselves, say they fucked up, and then take responsibility, smash Southampton, and go to the Etihad with some confidence, because otherwise it's done. P. Trim says it's part of our journey, but I'm not sure what that was today. I think it's real anxiety. They just, I don't know. Like, it wasn't anything like, Brentford away, Fulham away, or we really managed those games well away from home with the lead. In both of those games, we went up 2-0, quite early, and we were able to just manage the game from there. There was nowhere near that level of, composure. And I think just having a couple of different players in there incites that type of, anxiety. And then when you have one of your best players mess up the way that Thomas Partey did, they just couldn't respond. And yeah. Cello says we need a proper CB, Saliba backup, right back and right wing, someone to challenge Saka, and a striker, Jesus backup, and Kedia in it next season. Elton says we need to take at least 1 point from the City game. That's our only chance. Wake Up says we did this earlier when trying to finish top 4. We let it go. Now a chance of winning league, and we let it go. Yeah. P Trim says, so was being out of Europe a blessing in disguise? I don't know. I never really bought into the blessing in disguise thing. I think, that was a lot of copium for the way that we went out, and a lot of arrogance from our fan base. I do think that, a lot of us were just like, Sporting is shit. We're going to go right by them, whatever. And then it was an embarrassing way to go out because of the minutes that we had to play, the injuries that we incurred, the poor performance we had, all that kind of stuff. So I don't know if being out of Europa was a blessing. I never really bought into that. But we'll never really know what being in Europa would have done for us. But I do think it would have kept us sharp, at the very least. So there's that. Errol says, when is Saliba back? Southampton possibly. Jesse has to be on the bench. I don't think he's going to play another minute in the season, if I'm honest with you guys, just based on what I've read, the fact that he needs surgery, and the idea that he's going to be 5 weeks out and then play a couple of minutes against Southampton and be on the bench and then turn up to the Etihad to play against City, and he's going to look like Saliba, sounds very far-fetched to me. Rep 187 says we bottled 4th last season, but we are getting Champions League football this season. So if we bottle the league, we will win it next season. Yay. I mean, that's the way that you could think about it. Lucas says, if being honest, we had games that we could easily lost or draw. The table don't lie. At the end, City were always right there on expected points. So if they leapfrog us, just fair play to the better team. I mean, that's the idea, is like I think we can all say that they're a better team than us. We were just in a really good position. But when you look at the statistically, we've been right there with them, but City have just been a little better, in terms of they score the goals, they have the mentality, they have this and that, and they're playing in multiple competitions and still are right on our tail. So, I still think perspective is key. There are a lot of Arsenal fans that I feel like want to pretend like before we played at Liverpool, played St. James, went to the Etihad, that we were 8 or 9 points clear and that it never would have evened itself out. I think this is the biggest blow because it's a game that we should have had all 3 points. But, they have to make it up somewhere. They just need to suck it up, for real. Wake Up Mind says, not just game against City, Brighton, Newcastle. We now have Wolves are picking up form. Playing Wolves at home, I expect us to beat them. Keep it 100 with y'all. I'm not hearing nothing about no Wolves. No, nothing. We've played too well this season for me to be thinking about Wolves. Like, we should be beating West Ham. We didn't do it, not because they're a great team, but because we were crap. Ashraf says, feeling very deflated. Where do we go from here? Southampton. And try to win the game. We play first for the first time in a long time. So we have to play against Southampton. We'll be at home and we better win. I think a win will help steady the ship a little bit, but this has just been a very difficult 2 weeks. Very difficult. But we've been through difficult weeks. I mean, it was, in January, I think, or February, where we lost to Everton and drew to Brentford and then lost to Man City or something. And then that was the end of the season and we came back. So, this is another little sticky patch, but they just need to get over it. Spooky Ghost says, we bottled today. Saka is a long way from world class. We need to upgrade xhaka. I don't think Saka is a long way from world class because he missed the penalty and had a bad game. But I get, like, he's supposed to do everything, and anytime he makes a mistake, we're going to overblow it. You know, if Saka didn't play the way he played all season, we wouldn't be anywhere near where we are. Like, I think in this fan base, and this is kind of like the last thing that I'll say, is that we tend to make a player's mistakes who they are instead of what they do well, who they are. Especially if the good outweighs the bad, I don't understand how their mistakes can be how they're defined by the fan base. We did a lot of that with Gabriel, where he made a couple of mistakes and that became who he was to the fan base. And, you know, it's taken a long time for that to be, you know, rectified, but he's kind of had way more good games than bad, but you only really care about his mistakes. And if Saka is going to be that for this fan base, that's really, really harsh, I think, on the balance of the season and the last 2 seasons, you know? So yeah. Abdul says City fan currently, but when I started in the Prem, I was a gunner. So very strange season for me. So happy to see Arsenal doing great again. Maybe the best team win. How are you a City fan, but now you were an Arsenal fan before? You only get to choose once. You know what I mean? Lucas says Saka is the franchise, the last person people should go at. We are where we are because of him. Lionite says Saka has been average for 3 or 4 games now. Well, 3 or 4 games out of how many have we played? 28? You know, so again, perspective is important. You know, Martinelli had a 3 or 4 game spell where he was poor, and he's been pretty much our best player ever since then. So, you know, I'm not really hearing that. You know, are you guys still mad because Pepe is not in the team? Is that what it is? You know, get over it. But anyways, I'm going to get out of here. It's been a long, long stream. Make sure you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel. Obviously, tomorrow there will be more content. We'll talk more about, you know, game, title race, all that kind of stuff, you know. But at the end of the day, we move, we go again. Don't twerk for rivals too damn much. You know, don't embarrass us out here. It's not over till it's over, you know. But like this video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye, guys.